Picture this, you're standing in front of someone you care about, someone whose opinion cuts deeper than you ever admit. Your heart is racing, your thoughts are tangled, and you're trying to find just the right words. Words that will fix things, words that will explain you, words that will convince them to stay, to understand, to love you a little more than they did a moment ago. But everything you say makes it worse. Every explanation sounds defensive. Every reassurance sounds needy. Every attempt to clear the air only fogs it more. And then it hits you. Not because you're wise, not because you learned a new psychology trick, but because you're tired. You stop talking, you go quiet. And suddenly something shifts. It's subtle at first. A look, a breath, a pause, their energy changes, your energy changes. Because your silence, just did something that words never could. And what happens next is the part nobody warns you about. Silence reveals what people really feel, not because silence is manipulative, not because it's cold, but because silence forces truth to rise to the surface, the way still water reflects what turbulent water hides. This is the part most people misunderstand about relationships. We're taught to communicate everything, to always talk it out, to never go to bed angry, to explain yourself so they know where you stand. But here's the dark psychology twist. Talking is often how people avoid the truth. Silence is how people expose it. Today you're going to see why. Why silence, intentional silence, grounded silence, not passive-aggressive withdrawal, is one of the most powerful forces in attraction. Connection, conflict, and emotional clarity. Because nobody teaches you how silence actually works. Nobody tells you that silence is a mirror. Nobody tells you silence raises your value more than any speech ever could. But when you finally understand the hidden power of silence in relationships, you stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop trying to control outcomes. You stop giving away the most valuable currency you have, your emotional energy. And suddenly, people treat you differently, not because you became colder, but because you became stronger. Let's go deeper. Because once you see how silence works in the mind, in the brain, in attraction, in communication, and in gender dynamics, everything about your relationships changes. You start choosing when to speak rather than reacting. You start controlling the frame rather than fighting for it. You start pulling people toward you rather than pushing yourself into their space. And most importantly, you start hearing the truth they've been hiding behind their words. So let's begin. But first, let me ask you one uncomfortable question. How many problems in your life came from things you said that you didn't need to say? Exactly. Now we can talk. You grew up believing a myth that ruined arguments, ruined attraction, ruined connection. The myth goes like this: if you don't talk, they won't understand you. But here's the truth. Most people understand you just fine. They just like when you're over-explaining. Because when you over-explain, you expose your insecurity. And when you expose your insecurity, you lower your value. You think that giving people more of your words will make them care more. But in psychology, the opposite is true. The more words someone needs from you, the less power you have in that dynamic. Let's break the myth. Talking doesn't always equal clarity. Talking doesn't always equal closeness. Talking doesn't always solve misunderstandings. Talking doesn't always fix relationships. In fact, in the wrong emotional state, talking destroys relationships. Because when emotions are high, the brain stops processing language rationally. You're not speaking to their logical mind, you're speaking to their emotional mind. A mind that's defensive, reactive, threatened, and silence. Silence bypasses all of that. Silence doesn't attack their ego. Silence doesn't escalate the argument. Silence doesn't blur the meaning. Silence doesn't add more fuel to the fire. Silence just removes the noise. Silence is clarity. Silence is presence. Silence is power. And here's where the psychology becomes fascinating. The person who stays calm the longest controls the relationship dynamic. Not because they're dominant or manipulative, but because calmness is interpreted as certainty. And certainty is the most attractive emotional signal you can give. That's the big idea for this entire script. Silence communicates things that words ruin. So now we dive into the hidden mechanics, the subtle, invisible ways silence affects attraction, communication, conflict, and emotional value. Let's start with insight number 1. The frame of value. In any relationship, romantic, platonic, or professional, there is something called the frame. The frame is the emotional environment that defines the interaction. It's the silent agreement about whose reality is accepted. If you ever feel like someone isn't respecting you, if you ever feel like you're giving more than you're receiving, if you ever feel like you're being forced to explain yourself, it's because somewhere along the way, you lost the frame. And here's the part nobody tells you. Talking is how people lose the frame. Silence is how people reclaim it. Let's make this real. Imagine someone pulls away from you. Maybe they're distant, colder, less responsive. You feel it instantly. Your emotions tighten. Your chest gets heavier. Your thoughts speed up. Your instinct, talk, ask, explain, fix. You send a long message, you give a long speech. You say everything you're feeling because you hope more clarity will bring them back. But what actually happens? They pull away even more. Why? Because when someone pulls away and you chase with words, you've just sent a subconscious message. My emotional reality depends on you. And the moment someone feels that message from you, your value drops. Not your human value, not your worth as a person, but your relational value, the emotional weight you carry in that specific dynamic. And here's what psychology shows. Every relationship has invisible power exchanges. Every person is subconsciously assessing the other's stability, scarcity, confidence, and self-trust. And silence communicates all of them at once. And when you stop talking, when you allow the distance, when you stay calm, you send a different message. I'm still me, with or without your approval. That message hits the brain in a way words can't. It tells them you're not emotionally needy. It tells them you're not chasing validation. It tells them you're not losing yourself. This is why silence restores your value faster than any speech ever could, because silence rebuilds the frame. And once the frame shifts, everything else shifts with it. Let's go deeper. The psychology of emotional chase. People don't chase clarity. They chase uncertainty. Not toxic uncertainty, not chaotic uncertainty, but natural human curiosity. The kind that pulls you towards someone because you want to understand them, because they're not predictable, because they're not anxiously explaining their every move. And silence creates exactly that kind of psychological pull. Let me show you how it works. Imagine you text someone. Are you okay? Did I do something wrong? What's going on? Please just talk to me. Every message removes mystery. Every message removes value. Every message reveals your emotional dependence. Now imagine this instead. They pull away, you feel it, you notice it, but instead of reacting, you stay quiet. You focus on your life, you give space without drama. Suddenly the silence creates a loop in their mind. Why aren't they reacting? Don't they care? Did I misjudge their interest? Did they lose feelings? Are they mad? Wait, who's actually in control here? The brain hates open loops. It wants closure. It wants to understand the emotional outcome. So what does the brain do? It returns to the source of the uncertainty, you, but not because you manipulated them, not because you played games, not because you're cold or avoidant, but because silence restored balance. You gave space without collapsing emotionally. You allowed the natural psychological chase to return. This is why silence is so powerful in dating psychology and attraction. People chase what feels self-respecting, grounded, and not overly accessible. Silence communicates all of that at once. Now let's go deeper into a place most people never talk about. The emotional rewiring silence triggers inside you. Self-validation and the stillness of the mind. One of the hardest lessons you ever learn in relationships is this. You don't need their response to know your worth, but you don't learn that lesson through affirmations or journaling or motivational quotes. You learn it through silence. Silence forces you to sit with yourself. Silence forces you to see your patterns. Silence forces you to confront the parts of you that look for reassurance instead of self-trust. When someone doesn't reply, when someone pulls away, when someone misunderstands you, your mind panics. It wants to fix the story, rewrite it, control it. But when you choose silence, you interrupt the old habit loop. You break the addiction to external validation. You build emotional resilience. You build psychological independence. Let me show you something profound. In neuroscience, silence changes the brain. Silence increases prefrontal cortex activation, the center of reasoning, clarity, and emotional regulation. Silence reduces amygdala activity, the center of fear and anxiety. This means silence literally rewires your mind away from emotional panic and toward emotional strength. By choosing silence, you're training your brain to become more mature, stable, and confident. That's why silent people seem mysterious or deeper or more attractive. It's not that they're pretending to be calm, they are calm, and calmness is magnetic. Now let's move to the most controversial part, silence and conflict. This is where most people misuse it. This is also where silence becomes unbelievably powerful when used correctly. Conflict without chaos. People assume conflict is solved through arguing, debating, and explaining. But here's the psychology truth. Most conflict isn't about the words, it's about the energy underneath the words. And silence changes the energy. Imagine you're arguing with someone who's emotional, loud, reactive, defensive. Your instinct might be to match their energy. Raise your voice. Talk faster, talk more. But the moment you match their chaos, the argument is no longer about the issue. It becomes about survival. Two egos fighting for control. Silence is the only thing that breaks that cycle, because silence does what words cannot. It lowers the emotional temperature. It gives their ego space to settle. It removes escalation. It prevents you from saying something you can't take back. It gives you time to observe instead of react. And here's where dark psychology comes in. When someone is arguing emotionally, and you remain quiet but present, their mind starts hearing their own words, and they realize something powerful. They sound unreasonable. Not because you told them, not because you shouted over them, not because you tried to prove them wrong, but because silence forced them to hear themselves. You didn't win the argument through force, you won it through emotional control. Silence protects you. Silence protects the relationship. Silence protects the truth. Now let's go to one of the deepest insights of the entire script. Silence reveals intention. The truth that appears in sound silence. People say a lot with their mouths, but their silence says everything. Let me show you what I mean. When you go silent, you get answers you could never get through conversation. You learn who reaches out, who cares, who checks in, who apologizes, who ignores you, who gets uncomfortable, who gets curious, who stays stable, who collapses emotionally, who respects your boundaries, who only liked the version of you that chased. Silence is a filter. It removes everyone who only wanted you for the wrong reasons. It exposes people who depended on your constant emotional availability. It reveals who values you and who values the benefit of your attention. Because here's the raw truth. People treat you differently when you're silent. Silence disrupts their expectations. Silence removes the comfort of always knowing how you feel. Silence forces them to reveal their true priorities. You don't have to test people. Silence tests them for you. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this perfectly. Imagine a man who always responds instantly to a woman he likes. He replies fast, he over-explains, he always reaches out, he tries to make sure she never misunderstands his intentions. On the surface, he's being honest and thoughtful, but psychologically she sees something else. Predictability, availability, emotional dependence. And because humans value what's scarce and stable, not what's anxious and abundant, her attraction drops. Now imagine he becomes silent, not ghosting, not cutting her off, not punishing her, just quieter. He stops chasing, he stops initiating every conversation. He stops giving emotional effort that isn't being returned. What happens? Her mind fills the silence with questions. Did he lose interest? Did I mess up? Has he moved on? Why isn't he trying anymore? And suddenly her perception shifts. Because silence changed the dynamic. And the same is true for women, for men, for humans in general. We value what values itself. Silence is self-value made visible. Now let's move to gender dynamics, because silence plays very differently in masculine and feminine psychology. The masculine and feminine. Response to silence. This part is crucial. In dating psychology, silence means different things to different emotional systems. Masculine energy reacts to silence with responsibility. Feminine energy reacts to silence with emotional intuition. But the deeper truth is this. Both energies respond to silence faster than they respond to words. When a man goes silent, a woman reads the emotional meaning. She asks, What changed? What is he feeling? Why does this feel different? When a woman goes silent, a man reads the relational meaning. He asks, did I mess up? Did I lose her? What do I need to fix? Both are responding to the absence of noise in ways they never respond to constant communication. Silence activates emotional awareness. Talking activates intellectual analysis. And relationships thrive on emotional awareness, not over-analysis. That's why silence works. It bypasses logic and speaks directly to instinct. Let's go even deeper, because silence doesn't just influence others, it transforms you. The internal power rising in silence. When you choose silence, you're not just changing the dynamic with someone else, you're changing the dynamic inside yourself. You start noticing your own emotions, you start breaking old patterns, you start discovering how much of your suffering came from your need to fill empty space with words. Silence strengthens your emotional boundaries. Silence builds your self-control. Silence teaches you patience. Silence reveals who you are when you're not performing for connection. And most importantly, silence brings you back to yourself. You realize you don't need constant reassurance, you don't need constant responses, you don't need to explain your worth to anyone, because silence teaches you the rarest form of confidence. The confidence of someone who isn't afraid of losing people. Not because you're careless, not because you're avoidant, but because you finally understand that anyone who leaves when you're silent was never choosing you. They were choosing the version of you who overextended to keep them comfortable. And that version of you is gone now. Let's go to the final part. The part where everything comes together. You've seen how silence works externally. You've seen how silence works internally. You've seen how silence shifts value, attraction, certainty, truth, and emotional power. So here's the ultimate takeaway. Silence is not the absence of communication. Silence is the strongest form of communication you have. Silence says, I am not desperate. I am not insecure. I am not chasing. I am not trying to control you. I am centered. I am grounded. I am enough as I am. I trust myself. I won't abandon myself to keep you. I am not afraid. And silence is confidence. Silence is emotional maturity. Silence is self-respect. Silence is clarity. Silence is truth. So the next time you feel the urge to explain, defend, argue, persuade, or chase, stop. Breathe. Return to yourself. And let silence do what your words never could. Because in relationships, in attraction, in communication, in conflict, in human behavior, silence is not empty. No, silence is full of power. And the moment you learn to use it, people stop seeing you as noise. They start feeling you as presence. Here's your mic drop. When words fail to protect your worth, silence will.